Hello, good morning, Sitaram, and welcome to another program in the series, Addiction and Recovery. I'm your host, Ramnaresh Dwarika, welcoming you and all of our brothers and sisters of the Caribbean worldwide on the various networks to this our regular Thursday morning program on addiction and recovery. I want to let you know that this program is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube and Facebook under my name, Ramnaresh Dwarika, Addiction and Recovery. And it can be used as a very useful resource material because the nature of addiction is that it's a disease of denial. And a lot of people are not forthcoming to admit that they have a problem with addiction. And as a result, it can be useful sometimes to send someone a link. This program will also be replayed on radio and TV Jagriti at 10 p.m. tonight. And of course, on your screens, you have my numbers. You can text me at 768-5925, or you can post your comments on YouTube or Facebook, and I will respond to them. This morning, I want to speak about a very interesting subject, something that is of concern to a lot of people I have spoken to, and that's the whole question of digital addiction. This morning, while waiting to link up with the program, I thought about my own experience, how things have changed. And a lot of changes have happened in my lifetime. And I'm sure in your lifetime, all of you who are listening, especially the ones who are about my age, and you would remember how things used to be in our childhood days. We had no telephone, no cell phone. In my case, we had no radio or television either. Growing up in a little village in Trinidad here, Gandhi Village. And I remember the first radio came in the neighborhood when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And we did not even have electricity. And the radio and television, radio at the time worked on batteries and so on. So we have come a long way since then. I remember in the evening at 6 p.m., you'll have someone, cleaning the shade lamp every evening. My eldest sister, that was her job. There were these shade lamps with the little shade mark home, sweet home. And you had to clean it with newspapers, cloth. Had to be very careful not to break it because that was the main source of light in the night for every one of us to sit around the table and read and do our homework and so on. Well, most of us tried to get our homework done before night because in those days, no street lamp. By 6, half past 6, 7, children were already going to bed. The entertainment in those days, my grandfather would have us sit in a circle around him after dinner, and he will tell us stories about folklore and so on. And we talk about things like Duen and La Jablesse and Supuya and all of those things that we were, you know, scared about in a lot of instances, but he will tell us these stories and he would recall his own childhood days and the early days of indentureship and so on. And this is how have been able to learn a lot about our ancestors and so on. However, today I want to speak especially about digital addiction, because what I'm seeing around me and myself have realized that this is something that you can become easily addicted to because I find myself as well spending a lot more time looking at TikTok and Facebook and checking out AI. I also use AI sometimes to look for material for the program to do research. And these are all useful things, but in the melee, sometimes you can lose track of time. So in the evening, when after the news, I would go on to the phone, but I have developed a discipline to cut off at a certain time to make sure before 10 I am going to sleep because I need to. It is not healthy not to get sufficient rest. So I make sure I'm going to sleep before 10 o'clock in the night. So I could be up at 6 and I would have gotten my full 8 hours sleep. However, a lot of young people and even adults do not seem to have the discipline. These and I decided to check this out and find out why. So can you imagine a teenager sitting in a room for hours and the blinds are closed, so you don't know whether it is night or day outside. The room is air conditioned, and they have a phone in their hand and they are scrolling endlessly. You know, parent knock on the door, and you don't even get an answer. And now you open the door and you go, and they don't even look up. And I'm speaking here from experience. I have relatives who are having this experience, or even an adult, always checking their emails. And now I myself belong to so many group chats on WhatsApp. And I need to keep abreast all the time because in some of these groups that I belong to, for instance, I am a member of the National Council of Indian Culture. I'm a director there. I'm also on various other chats. And sometimes we have meetings online, we have round robin, as we say, where notices are posted up, or sometimes meetings are canceled. A lot of things, and you need to be checking your phone ever so often to see if there are any notifications. And then I have security cameras in the business and in the place here, and you're getting notifications coming from those. You order things online and you have notifications coming that whether it's going to be delivered or not. So gradually, even I'm realizing this is not something that is peculiar to certain individuals. Almost all of us, when you step back, I want you to step back and listen, especially if you are in the world of work. There's so many, there's of course, there's social media where you're checking to see what your friends have posted. And some people are even posting what they had to eat, what they're cooking right now, you know, every single activity. And in some cases, they're checking to see how many likes they've gotten, how many hits they've gotten. And and this and this because of this, people are missing out a lot, ignoring family members, where people, even in my case, where I would sit and have conversations sometimes, the partner is on the phone, I am on my phone, and we are sitting when we should be talking to each other about matters that are very important to the relationship, but everybody's on their phone. When I have my grandchildren over here and family members, even though I haven't seen them for quite a little while, they're visiting just for a short period because everybody's busy. Yet everyone is on the phone. You sit at the dinner table and everybody's on the phone and they're texting each other, not even raising their head to communicate, look past the salad or past for me. They're texting each other, I mean, and I worry to think, where is this leading to? What is going to happen with social interaction and relationships going forward? And this is not just a bad habit. Some people see it as a bad habit, but it is being recognized as what we now calling digital addiction. It's one of the fastest rising behavioral health challenges in our world today. So in this program today, hopefully, if time permit, we'll talk about what digital addiction really is, why it's really rising so quickly, its impact on individuals, families, and communities, how we can protect ourselves and break free from digital addiction. And I hope that you would stay with me for the whole program. And of course, if you can't, then you can always come back and look at it when you have time. So, what is digital addiction? Digital addiction is defined as a compulsive, uncontrolled use of digital devices. I'll say that again. Digital addiction is the compulsive, uncontrolled use of digital devices. I want you to pay attention to compulsive and uncontrolled. And these devices would include, of course, phones, tablets, computers, gaming consoles. You have these boxes, game, and despite harmful consequences. Now, you have use, you have abuse, you have addiction. Addiction is usually when it is causing harmful consequences, and yet we can't seem able to stop it. So I want to define that clearly, because this is not about banning the use or not using the phone and all of these devices. They're very useful. In fact, it is integral today to be able to use these things to open accounts online, to track your accounts online, pay your bills, all of those, and as I said, to keep in touch with certain activities. However, the screen is not, you're not addicted to the screen. You're addicted to what's on the screen. So it's not the computer that is the problem. It's not the cell phone. It's what the content of it is what we become. So that social media scrolling, online gaming, endless video streaming, online gambling. Now you have online gaming and online gambling, where people would have walk or send somebody, a punter, to put a bet and play away for them. No, you can do it online. You can, so that makes it even more difficult for family members to track what is happening, to even become aware that, in the old days, the husband or the wife is gambling, they have to actually arrange to have the bet place or walk to the lotto booth and place the bet. So you can see them going, you can actually detect the activity. However, now, when you think that they're looking at their phone and they're texting somebody, they're actually placing a bet. And before you know it, they're transferring money from the bank. You can do it with, online accounts and all of that. And the people are draining out their accounts. They're borrowing money, getting into trouble. And that's another subject we'll talk about maybe in the future, online gambling. And then, of course, impulsive and compulsive shopping, where people in the old days, they will go to the stores when that's a kind of addiction as well, a compulsive behavior that some people, when they're stressed out, they go shopping. But they would have had to go to San Fernando, Port of Spain, to do that in the old days, or Chabonas. Now, you're doing it right online. You're buying from all of these, you name it. There's thousands of websites that you can go and shop, buy things. And the brain reacts to these digital rewards the same way it reacts to drugs or alcohol, with dopamine surges. Let me explain that. There's a substance in the brain, chemical called dopamine. And dopamine is what is responsible for us feeling happy. So if we went to the temple and we sang kirtan and bhajan, and then we left, or the church, and we sang hymns and so on, and we left feeling happy, it is because the brain secreted a little bit of dopamine because of that activity. We won the football match or whatever, we feel happy, the brain released a little dopamine. However, when we use alcohol and other drugs, it induces the brain to release dopamine right away. And that is why the happy feeling, the euphoria, is rapid and quick. So too, when we get feedback from our likes or what we see, when we are strolling, remember there's a whole lot of different contents on social media, on TikTok and all of these places. You may be following an issue and you're happy because of a certain outcome. You know, they're stopping the war, or talking about ceasefire in Ukraine, or you may, and there's all kinds of sexual content. So people are, and there's comedy, you know, there's people telling jokes and all of that. All of these things causes emotional reactions in the brain. You're either getting anxious over it, or you're becoming depressed over it if things are not going your way, or you are getting comical relief from it. So people keep strolling if they're not happy, seeing something on the social media makes them unhappy. They quickly scroll to something else that would change their mood. And so you're getting high and getting low and getting high and getting low on the phone or on the tablet. Now, why it's rising so quickly? Why are we seeing this explosion of digital dependence? One is, of course, accessibility. We have almost everybody, you know. I saw comedy where even the vagrant, he has a cell phone now, you know, ordering chicken and pizza and so on online. And the smartphones have put the entire world in our pockets 24/7. You know, and when you look at artificial intelligence now, you have all of these platforms that you can go and you can ask any question and you can get a response. You know, in the old days, you'll have to go to the library, you'll have to check so many references and books to get information. Now it's right there. And this is really very helpful, yet it has everything that is good in excess, has the potential of creating harm. So, another reason why is that the apps that they are designing now, they are created to be addictive. They have with them certain features like likes and notifications, you know, endless scroll, so that it is so convenient, but it actually entraps you into a behavioral pattern that in a very subtle way, you start to become addicted and dependent on it. Now, if we remember in the world, we recently came out in the in 20 from 2019 to 2023, 24, we had the COVID pandemic. And out of necessity, a lot of people they turn to the online employment, working away from home, um, and so that even schooling was being done now online and on the computers. So that a lot of people who did not have devices, they made the sacrifice and secured smartphones and computers and laptops and all of that. But children are not only children, in fact, I have found younger children, they are much more competent. When I am unable to solve a problem on my phone or laptop, I go and ask these little children, my grandchildren, and they are able to solve it like that. And they laugh at me and they say, "But Grandpa, you don't know what to do about that? That is so simple." So that there have been an increased reliance on on laptops for school, for work, and for social connection. Now, it has also been found that you could use this to escape stress. Digital platforms offer easy escape from real world problems. Now, stick a pin, think for a minute. Isn't this that? isn't it the same thing that alcohol is doing? You know, and the other drugs? And that's the basic reason why people use all these psychotropic drugs, whether it be prescription pills or whether it be illicit drugs. We are using it to change our mood, to escape the reality that we are dealing with. And then there has been over time, as I said, from my childhood to now, there's been what you call a cultural shift where digital use is normalized and everyone's on their phone. And now, in the old days, I worked in psychiatry, and one of the symptoms that you look for is when people, speaking to themselves. That is, they're hearing voices, and so they're responding to a person or some entity that is not there. And that's a clear sign of schizophrenia, mental illness. In fact, one of the screening tools you'd ask people in psychiatry, do you hear voices? But these days, with these AirPods that people have, you can't even see it, and you just see them walking down the street and talking to themselves. You don't know if they're talking on the phone or they're Bluetoothing, as we say, or if they're just mentally ill. It's very difficult. And so, but it is now normal to see people talking like that. And the digital, smartphones have literally taken over the world. Now, this isn't about young people alone, adults and even seniors are affected. As I was saying, I myself, if I'm not mindful, I tell myself, I'm just going to go on for just to check an issue. I'm interested in world politics. I want to see what's happening with our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in Ukraine, what's happening in the US with all of this, change in policies and so on. But then, of course, in between these platforms, when you have to scroll, you're seeing other content, and sometimes you see things from Trinidad. And of course, there's that bacchanalia mentality here, and there's the tit and tat between the politicians and so on in recent times here on several issues, sensitive issues. So you get distracted by those, and in if you are not very disciplined, if I am not very disciplined, I could go way and way on, you know. And sometimes there's a tendency to do that. If well, look, I don't have anything serious in the morning, I could sleep late. But then sleeping late is not healthy, you know. And I myself have to look at that. So let's break it down. You have social media addiction, that is compulsive scrolling, comparing, craving likes, people looking to see, and putting out all kinds of things there to get people, to get followers, to get likes, to get subscription. And of course, there's a monetary component to some of these things. These are, you know, you have people who create uh, videos, put it out there, and they market it so that there's a pecuniary benefit there as well. And then there's gaming addiction, that is online games that reward endless play, often leading to lost sleep, poor health, and social withdrawal. And then you have streaming addiction, that is binge watching shows for hours, losing track of time. And I know of people, young people now, they just few days ago, the CSEC results came out. And some people who are very brilliant, who have been doing well all along, all of a sudden you see grades starting to drop. And if you look at it introspectively, you realize that a lot of time has been lost now on social media, where young people could have been revising their work and doing their research and, you know, reviewing their past papers and all of that, a lot of that time is now being spent on gaming, on social media, on scrolling and all of these. And the difficulty there is when, you know, I mean, even my little grandchildren, even I'm seeing other little children, 3 and 4 year olds, they all, if you don't give them the cell phone, they start throwing a tantrum. In fact, I recently was told a joke of, long time you're dropping your children to nursery school, and when you're leaving, they would cry because the mother is leaving or the parent is leaving them. But now the mother could leave. Once you leave the tablet with them, they're okay. So children are now being literally they have using the media to babysit them. You give them the phone and they're quiet. You don't have to worry about them after that. And then you don't know what sites they are going. These children, they know how to use and access all kinds of sites. There are some parents who know how to put parental controls on the devices, but most of them, in fact, I don't know how to do it, even though I've been using a phone for so long. And then there's online gambling and shopping, as I said, and these carry, of course, financial risks behind. You realize you max out the credit card, but yet now you want to still go back, and you have a certain amount of time to pay off the credit card. And if you don't, you know what will happen. The interest rates is skyrocketing, and it, where one person let's suppose a couple, one of the members of the family is secretly, you know, purchasing things online, and it leads to a lot of dishonesty. You have to tell lies now, and it creates a lot of chaos, especially between wife and husband. If the wife or the husband is shopping online, um, I'm not meaning to be gender specific here or discriminatory, but a lot of times wives, they are home alone and they're checking out things for the children, and you can get things cheaper online, and so they go. But then a lot of people can start using shopping, buying unnecessary things just because they feel, they get a high from doing this, satisfying a emotional need. And then there's, of course, workaholism online, where I know some people who they go to work, and as soon as they come, they take the laptop, they're gone in the room, and you can't see them again. Fathers have no time to spend with the children because they still have work to get done online. They're bringing the work home, you know, or the business. They just can't spend time with the family. Even around the table, they're eating, and their eyes are not in contact with what they're having. And I was looking at a program just yesterday where it's important that we make eye contact with our food, because when we see what we're eating, the brain directs the body and directs the organs to secrete various enzymes that are specific to digesting that particular food. The mouth salivate when you see the food. But if you didn't see the food, we're watching the TV and we're just eating. The food is finished and we're not even aware. So it is critical to eat with that level of awareness. Now, if we keep doing this, the brain itself gets rewired to become dependent, for and becomes rewired looking for instant gratification. And that instant gratification is the root of all addiction, in my experience. Now, what are some of the warning signs and symptoms of addiction? So that if you have children, or if you need to look at it even in yourself, as I am doing while I'm doing this program, I'm thinking, I have the potential. The same way I was addicted to alcohol, there's that, I won't want to call it addictive personality, but there's that tendency for extreme, for excesses. So one need to look at themselves. So as we're doing this program, think about yourself. If you are becoming addicted, in that you are losing track of time online, you tell yourself, well, look, I have to be somewhere else at this time, but you went on the phone, and then you realize, look, you lost so much time, you have no time to have a shower now and get ready. And so you're running late to the other activities because you're losing track of time. Then what happens? It leads to a certain level of irritability or anxiety when away from devices. And I have realized that myself. You know, um, I I was giving a friend a lift a few days ago to go Chaguanas rather than go with two cars, and he left his phone in his car. He forgot it in his car, and you should see his state. And I too sometimes forget my phone and charging upstairs, and I go in the garden and then realize I don't have my phone. And think about it, how many of us we feel like what we say, fish out of water, when we don't have our phone with us because we don't know who is calling or what we are missing out or some question we might have asked or email, or we were looking forward to a response from someone, especially if it's in a relationship. Young people could identify with that. You want to see if the other person got the message. The phones have all these little features to tell you if they got the message, if they read it, and if they're not responding now, it is causing a lot of, why they're not responding to my query or my question, or whether they are there or not, whether they have turned off the phone. All of these things cause conflict. The wife trying to reach the husband, and the phone is turned off. Why is your phone turned off? Or why you're not taking my call? Where are you? I am into marriage counseling, and I can tell you I hear a lot of that in relationship. And that could lead to anxiety, can lead to depression when people are away from their devices. Of course, neglecting sleep, meals, and relationships. And I can tell you, I know of specific cases, people coming to see me, where children are now, you know, refusing to go anywhere. They're just coming up with all kinds of excuse, headache, this, that, the other. But the truth is, they want to stay locked up in their room so that they can continue the game. Because gaming has different stages. They want to beat the game. They want and if there are other people players, they want to also beat the other player. It's just like any other sport. And then there's, of course, fall in productivity at work or school. And if these things are happening, parents need to, employers need to, you yourself need to look at, why is this happening? Then, of course, there's the physical issues of eye strain, headaches, back pain from sitting in bad postures, slouching on the couch or on the bed, not sitting properly with the spine erect, can lead to physical problems later on. And of course, it takes its toll on the eyes. All these, we're supposed to be a certain distance away from these screens because they generate certain the light in it and so on, generates certain vibrations, certain effect. It has an effect on the eyes, so that you're not supposed to be so close to it. And then there's, of course, the feeling of failure, the inability to cut back. Even when you try, a lot of people try and realize and they resign themselves and start rationalizing, making excuses so that they could continue to engage in the activity. So think about your own habits. How many hours a day are you on screens beyond work or school? You know, And what are some of the effects and impact this could have on people's life? Of course, digital addiction affects every part of life. Mental health is affected by way of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, when you're not getting the likes and so on. And then you have online bullying where people have access to you now because they get your number from somewhere, and we've seen this. We have seen children fighting in school not too long ago because of conflict they had online. And then, of course, it leads to other problems of health problems like obesity, poor sleep, posture problems. Then there's, of course, relationship problems between partners, as I alluded to earlier on. Children and friends feel ignored because, okay, you were out to work all day, you know, now in the evening you're home, you've had your meal, your bath and all of that. And instead of sitting and let's talk about what's happening with the children or with the household or the relative or whatever issues we have to deal with, you're on your phone, she's on her phone, and nobody could be bothered. And then there's a whole lot of infidelity that comes because of this the the ability to use the phone. I know a lot of people, their marriages are on the rocks now because the partner found their phone with someone text, they send in text or people sending them text and all kind of things like that. So that I'm sure we could speak a lot more about that. And then there's of course youth development could be affected, where the attention span, you can have, attention span issues where people, when you wake all night on the phone and you go to school the next day and you're sitting in the class and the subject is not so, it is boring. A lot of subjects are boring. Maths and physics and all of those are not so exciting to most people. So it is easy to drop asleep. It is very difficult to keep focus. And of course, that is going to take its toll on your schoolwork. Of course, very important is most people, even adults, are losing what we call the ability to negotiate relationship. And this comes from face-to-face interactions. Because when we speak on the phone, you don't know if you can't measure the person's affect. You don't know if they're smiling or if they're crying. They could be speaking, telling you how they are in pain, but they are smiling on the other end. You don't know. So that it is important. There's what you call nonverbal cues that you are able to pick up that when people are inconsistent, when they're saying one thing, but their body language is saying something else. And that can only happen in face to face interactions. And of course, it again, by extension, leads to community isolation, a loss of real human connection. So that somewhere down the road, imagine the only friend you had was your cell phone. You neglected all other relationships to the exclusively to the phone. When you need people around you, what will happen then? Think for a minute. Who's going to come to help you or to assist you in any way, to pick you up if you fall, actually. The irony is that digital tools, they promise connection, yet too much of them leave us feeling more and more alone. And now I could tell a lot of stories, about this from actual experience, counseling, talking to young people, visiting. You have students failing classes now because of late night gaming. You have a professional missing deadlines because of compulsive social media use. Families where everyone sits together, but each member stares at a different screen. I'm sure you all are seeing that. These are not isolated cases, they are becoming the norm. So, how do you break free? What are some of the pathways to recovery from digital addiction? And the good news is change is possible. What are some of the steps to recovery? And these include digital detox periods. That is, schedule time away from screens so that, family members, mother in the house, father can say, look, no telephone at the dinner table, no telephone, no cell phones from this time to this time, no device at meals, no screens before bed. Mindful use, that is tracking screen time and removing unnecessary apps. There are some apps here that really are very highly addictive. So you want to help yourself, get rid of some of them. And in place of those, you see, nature doesn't like a vacuum. If you remove something, you need to put something else. In addiction, having worked in this field, I can tell you, you need to find alternative because all the time that was spent on any particular addiction, whether it be drugs, whether it be digital, whether it be gambling, when you stop, you find you have a lot of time on your hand. And you know the old saying, an idle brain is the devil's workshop. So it is good to find other things. So, replace it with healthy replacements like reading, exercise, face-to-face connection, playing sports, going out there, you know, getting involved in things like gardening, taking care of a pet. All of these things take you away from those things, make you get out. So, of course, professional help is available. I have been seeing people more and more, not only for substance abuse and drug addiction, but with behavioral addiction, gambling, and all of those things. So there's counseling, there's therapy, and of course, there's support groups for severe cases. And I can tell you, the 12 steps that is used by Alcoholics Anonymous can also find very, very effective use to deal with any other addiction because the formula is the same. Avoiding that first smoke, first drink, first behavior, one day at a time. Of course, praying to God is critical, asking God to help you with these addictions. Just like other addictions, breaking free takes awareness, discipline, and support. Now, how families and communities can help. Parents can model healthy digital habits for children. But if you on your phone all the time, you can't correct your children. You will not have the moral authority. Schools can include digital wellness education. Now, I think this should be a subject matter that should be dealt with in schools. I know a lot of schools do not permit the use of phones in class, but it is not to say that every child going to school now has a phone because parents are afraid they might get kidnapped and all of that, or they get into trouble and they have to call to say when to pick them up if they're in detention. So a phone is very useful. So employers can also set fair boundaries for work hours. And I know some people say, no, 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 no cell phone. Because I've seen workers, they have the phone hook up on the shoulder while they're doing the other work, and so their attention is divided and they can make a lot of mistakes. Communities can encourage real life social activities. Long times we used to have football matches, cricket matches between communities, where not only the players were involved, the entire community went to see the match and support them. We need to get back to some of these things where we build relationships. We know what our neighbors look like. We know what is happening in our communities. If we are going to unite against crime and all of those things, we need to know who our community members are. So it takes all of us to create a healthier balance. None of us are spared from this activity. Now, the truth is digital technology is here to stay. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to use it wisely and not let it use us. Again, I'll say that we need to use it wisely and not let it use us. If you see signs of digital addiction in yourself or a loved one, take it seriously. Seek balance and seek support. Remember, your time, attention, and relationships are precious. Don't let screens steal them. I'll repeat that again. Your time, attention, and relationships are precious. Don't let screens steal them. At the end of the day, your relationship is what is most important. Our relationship with each other, mother and with parents, with siblings, with friends, these are what has sustained the human race to this point. We need to remember these going forward. We need to nurture them just like you'd nurture plants. You need to nurture your relationships. You can't take your relationships for granted. Now you really don't know what's happening with people around you because of you're not seeing them. People are not walking across to speak with a neighbor anymore. You're calling on the cell phone. Yes, there are some benefits. I know there are a lot of people who are not ambulant who can now stay. I mean, they are home, they can't walk, but they are in touch with relatives not only in Trinidad and Tobago. I have sisters and brothers who are in North America, in England, and some of them in South, and all of that. And we speak to each other almost daily. And thank God for the phone and WhatsApp. We are able to stay in touch, actually see each other. And these are the benefits of it and advantages in some respect. But at the same time, they can become the nemesis in that we're not making the effort now to actually go and sit with a person. There's a difference. I can tell you, a lot of people are now giving feedback, during, I just use one example, during the COVID epidemic, out of necessity, a lot of people could not go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And yes, the Zoom platform was used and still is used for the online meetings and still has some advantages in that now you don't have to start your car. If you don't have a vehicle, you can still attend a meeting online, sitting in your couch with your family. And a lot of people have good justification. They don't have to leave their family in the night because of the home invasion and all of that. They can be home now and all of those advantages. But of course, going physically and meeting other members, shaking their hands, sitting with them, having a cup of coffee, there's no substitute for that. So that I think the critical word here is balance. We need to have balance. We need to use it wisely. Of course, there are advantages of using the technology because the cell phone and digital technology is here to stay. Almost everything is moving in that direction. Your banking, paying your bills, shopping, you name it, registering companies and accounts and all of that. Everything is being done online now, even getting your SE results and the schoolwork, assignments, lessons. We are gradually moving more and more into that area. At the same time, we have to be mindful that we do not lose that personal contact because you realize there are some things that you can't do on the phone. You really can't truly express affection or even disgust on the phone or on the laptop. So I know this is a pretty lengthy program this morning, but I wanted to, I'm happy that we were given the time by the radio and television station. I want to thank Radio and TV Jagriti for hosting this program as a public service to all our brothers and sisters in Trinidad and Tobago, not only of the Hindu and East Indian community, but I know a lot of other brothers and sisters are following this program worldwide. I get your comments, I see your concerns, and I want to say how grateful I am that, God is using me to provide this service as well. And of course, I am not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I would like to let you know that I am there if you have questions or any constructive comments or any critique. I'm willing to listen to you because, you know, we all are in a position where we can learn from each other. And I want to thank all those people who have commented in the past, you know, and gave very, very useful feedback. You helped to improve this program. So I want to thank all of you for listening today. And of course, to let you remind you that this program is going to be repeated on radio and TV Jagriti at 10 p.m. tonight. And to remind you to join me again next week, Thursday, for this program, Addiction and Recovery. And we'll see you then. Have a good weekend until we meet again.